to the Project 4 podcast. Today's podcast will be about follow up to Project 1 and how it affects me now. So, to recap on Project 1, I wrote about a tough experience finding an apartment after campus shut down due to COVID. It was back in August, they shut down the campus, and right when that happened, I was searching through the internet, Facebook, to find out if there's any subleases or a half year commitments on an apartment. So I ended up finding a sublease through Facebook. The guy I can't name the name of, so we'll call him Bill. Bill wanted to get a house, so he ended up making a commitment to the apartment before he made this decision, and he was trying to get rid of it. So the issue with the situation is that this particular apartment structure wasn't accepting subleases, the Campus Village apartments. However, we were going to do an under the table deal and try and make it work. So, a week before I move in, I go up to the apartment and I meet the three potential roommates that I was going to have. They seem very cool at the time. My parents like them. They seem mature, likable. And we did mention something a little bit about the fact that I was subleasing. So, fast forward a week later, I woke up at 8 a.m. I packed up all my things, took about an hour, hour and a half, and we packed two cars and we started driving up to MSU. When we started driving up, I contacted the roommates and said, I'm coming up. However, no response. This didn't worry me. I thought they were sleeping in or whatever, because a lot of people wake up at 11, because it was 9 o'clock, 9:30 a.m. after all. Anyways, once I get up to the apartment, I have the key that they gave us to get in. And I walk up to the fourth floor to their apartment, and the key doesn't work. And I'm like, that's funny. So I knock on the door and see if they're there, and no one answers. I swear I could have heard a sound right when I knocked. But at that point, I didn't think much of it. So after about 30 minutes of waiting outside the door, I get a call from Bill. And Bill says, you're not going to like the news you're about to hear. So he basically says that I mentioned the fact that I was subleasing and that wasn't allowed. So the roommates, they contacted their lawyer about the whole thing. They completely ratted me out. Their lawyer said not to say a word to me, so they didn't. And now I wasted 2 hours driving up to MSU and also waiting 30 minutes at the door to see if they could answer. So at the end of the day, I was very mad because they could have had the courtesy to text me not to come up and, say to my face that they didn't want me at the apartment. I forgot to mention, when I met them that one day, I moved half of my things in. So I ended up having to get Bill to drive over to the apartment, which took him about an hour and a half because he lived in Novi. And he had to open the door himself, and they were all sitting there on the couch. I was furious. I didn't want to say a word to them. I went in, grabbed my stuff, and got out. They were not worth speaking to after that point. It was not a good experience. Anyways, after everything got back into the cars, I was mad. I was lost in my head, having terrible thoughts. How could they trick me like this? How could a bunch of sophomores get the best of me? How could they have power over which apartment I go to? However, after 30 minutes of thinking furiously, I had a little epiphany which lightened my mood. I was thinking, you may not have the power to control your environment 100% of the time. However, you do have the power to control your emotions. And that's exactly what I did after that point. Even though they controlled the apartment I was going to be in, I looked at it like I didn't want to move in with them anyways if they're going to pull something like that. And I can't let them get to me because otherwise they'd be controlling my emotions and what I think. And that wouldn't be right. So that was a lesson that I learned at the end of that day, that I need to be able to control my emotions no matter what the environment throws at me or else I won't be in control of my actions. Other people will puppet me. Now, let's fast forward 3 months. I was able to get an apartment at the Lodges of East Lansing off of Hannah Boulevard. Um, However, because I was able to find a half-year lease commitment, I wasn't able to choose my roommates because there were only 2 rooms left. So I was kind of scared to go in blind. I ended up doing it because I want to move out. And I actually turned out to have some okay roommates. They're 4 years older than me. They're in med school. And there's kind of a gap in age, so they're not my best friends, but I can get along with them. However, there are some things that we don't get along with, such as who does what cleaning jobs, um, you know, who's paying for what, the apartment utilities, all those issues. And I've noticed that the experience of dealing with these issues as a whole has made me a lot more mature person. Many times during the day, things will happen that are completely out of my control, and I've learned to deal with them because of what I went through 3 months ago. A good example of this is when we go over the chores as roommates and we assign chores to other people. I notice that my roommates sometimes don't hold up their end of the bargain and get lazy. Sometimes they don't vacuum as much as they should or sweep the floors. And when I put in 100% effort, I expect, them to reciprocate it and, keep the place clean. However, sometimes that's not always the case. And my initial reaction to it is I will get very annoyed at first. However, after a few seconds of pondering about it, I'll realize, you gotta step back and realize this isn't under your control and they're not doing this to jab at your ego. It's because they're just lazy. It's a personal thing for them. So when I step away and calm myself down, I'm able to solve the problem easier by knocking on their door and having a respectful conversation, which usually leads in a good outcome to them holding up their end of the bargain. For example, let's say he doesn't vacuum as much. Instead of knocking on the door hard, getting mad and worked up, I'll knock on the door. I'll have a little small talk first to ease them into it, and then I'll pitch in, the fact that they didn't vacuum fully. So after they're in a good mood, I'm in a good mood, they have no problem finishing up the vacuuming. Now that's way better than losing emotional control and getting mad over it, because then you'd have a feud. Now over the course of 3 months, I have actually been journaling my progress, my progress journal, and there's actually evidence that I have matured and changed over this past 3 months, more than I have in the past year probably. I have seen that I take a more positive outlook on things. I don't let things get to me as much, and I'm a lot more productive than I used to be. And I think this is because of the adopted mindsets I've taken from my experiences in college, whether it be the bad apartment experience, sometimes my roommates get on my nerves, that experience, the COVID experience, and dealing with my classes, and dealing with my friends at home, trying to see them. All these hardships right now that I'm experiencing COVID have real value and create growth for me. So if I were to take anything away from this podcast today, I would say that harsh experiences and learning lessons are important for growth. And growth is important to be a better person when you're in less hard times and you can take advantage of your opportunities. So at the end of the day, I'm grateful for the crappy apartment experience I had 3 months ago. I'm grateful for roommates who aren't perfect. I'm actually grateful for this epidemic and learning how to deal with it during freshman year, which should be the fun year. I'm grateful for the fact that, it's a little bit lonely up here and my close friends are far away. And I'm grateful for the fact that I get to solve the problems of living by myself. Instead of COVID being a time of, a bad year, 2020 was bad, I view 2020 as the most important year for my growth and sculpting my personality and making myself a more mature and effective person in the long run.